The air was thick with dust, the canyon walls towering over us like silent sentinels, watching our every move. The sun had long since dipped below the rocky peaks, leaving the sky painted in hues of crimson and violet. My breath came in ragged gulps as I tried to steady my nerves. We were lost, abandoned by the very man we trusted to guide us west. And now, with supplies dwindling and the desert night creeping in, hope was slipping through our fingers like dry sand. Jacob, muttering to himself, "How do we let this happen?" Beside me, my wife, Mary, clutched our young son, Ethan, close to her chest. The others, two families bound for California, huddled around a flickering campfire, their faces lined with exhaustion and fear. Mary whispering, "Jacob, what do we do now?" Before I could answer, a distant howl echoed through the canyon. A low, mournful sound that sent shivers crawling down my spine. It wasn't the sound of any ordinary coyote. The fire crackled, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. That's when I saw them, glowing amber eyes peering from the darkness. A black wolf, his coat like midnight, stepped forward from the brush. He was larger than any wolf I had ever seen, his muscles rippling beneath his fur as he moved with quiet grace. Ethan, whispering in awe, "Papa, look." Mary tensed, pulling Ethan closer, but something in the wolf's gaze kept me rooted in place. He didn't snarl. He didn't attack. He only watched. "Jacob," softly, almost to himself, "You're not here to hurt us, are you?" The wolf tilted his head, as if he understood. Then, slowly, he turned and trotted a few paces before stopping, looking back at me. An invitation. I didn't know why, but my gut told me to trust him. Grabbing my rifle, more for reassurance than for use, I took a step forward. "Jacob," to the group, "he knows a way out." Mr. Thompson, skeptical, arms crossed, "A wolf?" "Leading us." "Jacob, we need a real plan." Mary, softly, but firm, "And do you have one?" Silence. I turned back to the wolf, nodding. He padded ahead, his black form blending into the darkness, and I followed. One by one, the others did the same. The journey through the canyon was treacherous. Jagged rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth, and unseen creatures rustled in the brush. The wolf, Shadow, as I began to call him, moved with effortless precision, navigating terrain we would have never dared cross alone. At one point, the path narrowed to a sliver, forcing us to hug the canyon wall, a sheer drop into darkness on our other side. Shadow paused, looking back at us. A warning. Carefully, we edged along. Mrs. Turner, trembling, "I can't do this." "I can't." "Jacob, you can. Just follow the wolf." Shadow let out a low, reassuring chuff. Whether it was coincidence or something more, it steadied her. We pressed on. We had been walking for hours when we heard it, the distant murmur of voices. Not friendly ones. "Rustler." Laughing, "They can't have gotten far." "Rustler, that fool Carter don't know these lands. They're as good as ours." My blood ran cold. They had followed us. I motioned for the group to crouch behind a cluster of boulders. Shadow, however, stood tall, his ears pricked forward. He let out a deep growl, then darted into the brush. Ethan, worried, "Where's he going?" Jacob, watching the darkness, buying us time. Moments later, an eerie chorus of howls filled the canyon, bouncing off the walls in an unearthly echo. The rustlers froze. "Rustler, nervous wolves, too many of them. Rustler, let's get out of here." Boots pounded against a rock as they retreated. And then, as suddenly as it had started, silence. Shadow reappeared moments later, his amber eyes glowing in the dim light. He had saved us. The night stretched on, but we kept moving, following Shadow through the labyrinth of rock and brush. Finally, just as dawn painted the sky with streaks of gold, we saw it. Open land, stretching endlessly before us. "Jacob," voice thick with emotion, "we made it." The group collapsed in exhausted relief, but I turned to find Shadow standing at the canyon's edge. He met my gaze one last time before turning back toward the wilderness. Ethan, calling out, "Shadow, come with us." But I already knew the answer. He belonged to the wild, just as we belonged to the road ahead. The next morning, Shadow leads them to a hidden passage between the rocks. Sunlight spills through on the other side, a way out. Maggie grins, nudging Elias. Maggie, I guess some paths aren't meant to be found by men alone. Elias turns to thank Shadow, but the wolf is gone, vanished into the wild. Only the wind remains, carrying a distant, haunting howl. As he disappeared into the canyon's depths, his howl echoed one final time. As we set out on the next leg of our journey, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had been guided by something more than just a wolf. Perhaps he was a spirit of the land, a guardian of the lost. Or maybe, just maybe, he was proof that even in the darkest times, there is always a path forward if we dare to follow it. Jacob, softly, looking back one last time, thank you, Shadow. Weeks later, sitting around a fire, Tommy looks up at the stars. Tommy, do you think Shadow's out there somewhere, helping other lost travelers? Elias, smiling, I like to think so. Maggie watches the flames dance. Maggie, some guides don't need words to lead. Just trust. A lone howl echoes in the night, and somewhere in the wild, golden eyes watch over the land.